UFC Shanghai full review, Walker's insane comeback, and Pavlovich's tactical war. What is up, everybody? You're locked in with the MMA Fight Channel, and you know what time it is. We are breaking down the final UFC event of the summer, UFC Fight Night in Shanghai, China. We're gonna dissect every single fight that went down tonight. We had the explosive main event between Johnny Walker and Zhang Mingyang. The 5-round co-main event featuring Brian Ortega and Aljamain Sterling. We saw Sergey Pavlovich battle Waldo Cortez Acosta in a clash of heavyweight titans. Plus, we had a stacked card with guys like Pereira, Dawkins, and a ton of rising prospects. All right, no more waiting, let's get into it. And hey, quick reminder, there's no UFC card next week, but you better believe we're all counting down the days until September 6th. Why? Because we might just find out who's next for Khamzat Chimaev. In 2 weeks, UFC Paris is going down with an absolutely intriguing main event, Nasruddin Imavov versus Caio Baralho. And on that same card, we've got another fighting nerd showdown between Mauricio Ruffi and Benoit Saint-Denis. Then, on September 13th, it's another fight night headlined by Diego Lopes taking on, you guessed it, a third fighting nerd, Jean Silva. That fight is going to be a banger. September's looking solid, but October? October is absolutely stacked. Title fights galore, absolute carnage. It's gonna be epic. But first, let's get back to Shanghai. Kicking off the card, we've got the light heavyweights, Dr. Nurgozhai versus Uran Satibaldiev. Dr., the undefeated 10-0 prospect from Kazakhstan, came in with a ton of hype. Broad-shouldered, heavy-handed, solid wrestling, he looked like the real deal after a sick KO in the Contender Series. But his UFC debut was a complete disaster. Missed weight, almost got knocked out, then submitted with a Kimura. This was his shot at redemption. His opponent, Uran Satibaldiev from Kyrgyzstan, is a towering guy, over 6'3", a former LFA and Open FC champ. He took his debut on ridiculously short notice against the heavyweight and lost. This was his chance to shine in his own division. And right from the start, things went bad for Nurgozhai. Satibaldiev waited patiently, and 2 minutes in, he finds an opening, lands a clean straight right that drops Dr. He swarms, looks for a Kimura, but Dr. defends. Uran ends up on top, inside the closed guard, and from there he starts setting up a submission you see maybe once every 5 years, in Ezekiel choke, and Nurgozhai taps. Wow! What a nightmare for Nurgozhai's UFC career, now 0 for 2 with 2 finishes. But what a statement from Uran Satibaldiev. So many threats created in just 1 round. This kid is legit. Next up, bantamweights, Xiaolong versus Su Yongyu. Xiaolong is your classic Chinese veteran with 1 million fights under his belt. His opponent, Su Yongyu, also known as Jiu-Jitsu, is a tough grappler from Seoul. This was a classic striker versus grappler match. Yu tried for takedowns the entire fight, but Xiaolong's defense was on point, keeping the fight standing. For the first 2 rounds, it was dead even, but in the third, Xiaolong turned up the heat. In the final minute, they just threw down. It was awesome. Xiaolong was throwing nothing but elbows, like 1 billion of them. It looked like all his other moves were locked. A few landed clean, but when it went to the judges, Su Yongyu gets the unanimous decision, moving to a perfect 3-0 in the UFC. Then, at featherweight, we had Yi Jia versus Weston Wilson. Yi Jia, a young Chinese fighter with a crazy record, was possibly on his last chance in the UFC. Weston Wilson, a lanky submission artist, was looking to build on his last win. Between them, they had 26 submission wins. But this fight didn't touch the mat. They exchange low kicks, and then Yi Jia corners him. He throws a looping left overhand that glances, throws another that lands clean, and then another. Wilson just wasn't learning his lesson. Yi Jia keeps spamming that left hook, drops him, and starts unloading with ground and pound. Wilson gets up, but Yi Jia lands a 1-2 that puts him out for good. A clean knockout just 37 seconds into the first round. What a performance from Yi Jia! And now, for the middleweights, Michel Pereira versus Kyle Daukaus. Pereira, the one-time showman who became a tactician, was on a 2-fight losing streak. Daukaus was a guy who was actually cut from the UFC, became a champ on the regional scene, and stepped in here on just 2 weeks' notice to save the fight. And what happened next was pure madness. They feel each other out for 30 seconds, Pereira lands a nice body kick, and then Daukaus fires back. He cracks him with a lead right hook that floors Pereira. He swarms, raining down massive elbows. For a split second, it looked like Pereira was out cold. He comes to, but it's too late. The ref steps in. It's over. An early stoppage? Pereira protested, but it looked pretty legit. Kyle Daukaus is back in the UFC with a massive upset KO just 43 seconds into the fight. Unbelievable. Next, we had a tactical battle between Austin Hubbard and Zhu Rong. Hubbard wanted to wrestle. Zhu Rong, the young Chinese striker, wanted to keep it standing. And that's exactly what happened. Zhu stuffed 9 out of 10 takedowns, outstruck Hubbard, and even called for him to brawl. Austin wasn't having it. Zhu Rong takes the clear, unanimous decision win. In 2024, Charles Johnson put together an insane 4-fight winning streak, defeating prospects Aljamain Sterling, Jake Hadley, and Joshua Van in succession. However, Ramazan Temirov snapped that streak this year. Now, Johnson is once again testing a prospect in Lonan Kavanagh. The guy is 26 years old, undefeated, has finished more than half of his career wins, and is already 2-0 in the UFC. Tonight, he gets a chance to break into the top 15. Lonan Kavanagh was on fire in the first round. He landed a clean high kick, and on the feet, literally every calculated attack shook Johnson's head, who didn't quite seem to know how to handle the young prospect. 1-0 Kavanagh. In the second round, Johnson tried to wrestle twice, but both attempts nearly ended with him in a guillotine choke from Kavanagh. That's when he decided to adjust his striking, and as is often the case in his fights, he succeeded. He started to take a slight initiative, turning the tide of the fight, so to speak. Then, towards the end of the second round, he shut Kavanagh's lights out with a single punch, adding a few more shots on the ground. A brutal victory for the underdog, Charles Johnson, who was losing the fight, but ultimately scores another knockout. Mayashate is going through the worst stretch of his career, with 3 losses in his last 4 fights and only 1 win in 3 years. He urgently needs a win to save his spot in the league. Gage Young already tried to break into the league a year ago through the Contender Series but lost. This year, he was signed directly, but his debut was also unsuccessful. For him, just like for Mayashate, a victory is crucial. Essentially, this is a fight for survival. The fight went the full distance, and Gage Young won by unanimous decision. Mayashate landed some good shots at times, but overall, he lost the fight. He was behind on the number of strikes landed in the stand-up, and in the grappling, he was mostly on the defensive for almost the entire fight. In the end, all 3 judges gave the victory to Young. Tai Lake Nueraji is a rare representative from China in the welterweight division, as fighters from that country usually compete in lighter weight classes. The guy is only 24 years old and doesn't have a single fight that has gone to a decision. Out of 11 wins, 10 are by knockout. Kiefer Crosby is 10 years older. He had mixed success in Bellator, and since moving to the UFC, he has only had losses. Moreover, both losses were stoppages in the first round. Nueraji dominated Crosby in the first round but landed an illegal knee to the head while Crosby was on the ground, which is not allowed. Like a true sportsman, Crosby continued the fight. A full 2 points were deducted from Nueraji, not just 1. The fight resumed, and Nueraji needed nothing less than a finish, which he secured just a minute later by overwhelming his opponent on the ground. It was an almost spectacular victory, if not for the illegal blow. Nueraji won by technical knockout in the first round. Next up, another flyweight clash. Su Mudaerji versus Kevin Borjas. This was all Mudaerji. Borjas wanted to wrestle, but his takedown attempts were stuffed all night long. The Tibetan Eagle picked him apart from the outside. chopping at the legs, landing clean shots to the head. Borjas had no answers. The crowd hated the clinching, and the judges saw it clearly. Sumadarji wins a dominant 30-27 decision across the board. And then, the heavyweights. Sergey Pavlovich versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. This was a high-stakes fight, with Cortez Acosta trying to crack the top 3. This was a tactical and, let's be honest, not so exciting chess match. The first round was close, with both guys being extremely cautious, but as the fight went on, Pavlovich started to get more aggressive, landing the harder shots in the second and third rounds. He decided not to risk a brawl and played it smart. It wasn't the explosive KO everyone wanted, but it was a clear, dominant win for Sergey Pavlovich by unanimous decision. In the co-main event, well, this is a fight no one will ever want to rewatch. Brian Ortega versus Aljamain Sterling. Ortega looked like death itself on the scales, missing weight badly. For the first 3 rounds, absolutely nothing happened. Sterling stayed on the outside, picking at Ortega with low kicks and jabs, easily winning the rounds in the most boring way possible. Ortega just circled and did nothing. In the 4th, Aljo dropped him and landed some ground and pound, but Ortega survived. In the 5th, Ortega finally tried to press the action, but Sterling got on his bicycle and just ran. It was a terrible fight. Aljamain Sterling wins every single round in a 50-45 snoozer. He called for a title shot. Man, I don't know about that. And that brings us to the main event. After a string of decisions, all our hopes were on this one, and it delivered. We had the dangerous knockout artist from China, Zhang Mingyang, taking on the wild and unpredictable veteran Johnny Walker. Walker was coming off 2 brutal KO losses. Zhang was on a tear, finishing all his UFC fights by first-round knockout. He hates seeing a second round. The stage was set for his coronation in his home country. And the fight starts with some instant karma. Walker refuses the glove touch and immediately shoots for a takedown. But Zhang stuffs it, gets on top and starts working. Walker gets back up, and for the rest of the round, he's on the run, backpedaling as Zhang stalks him across the cage. A clear first round for the Chinese powerhouse. But then, in the second round, new territory for Zhang. Everything changed with one kick. Out of nowhere, Walker unleashes a devastating calf kick that clearly injures Zhang's leg. You could see it instantly. The Chinese fighter starts limping. He can barely stand. Walker lands another, and Zhang collapses in agony. The Brazilian swarms for the finish, raining down brutal hammer fists.
The ref gives Zhang every chance to survive, but Walker is relentless and gets the TKO stoppage. Johnny Walker pulls off the incredible comeback in the fight and in his career. After 2 KO losses, he gets a KO win on enemy territory and saves the end of the card. We were ready to call the hearse for him, but instead, he screamed, "Call an ambulance," but not for me. So what did you guys think of the card? Let me know in the comments. Who impressed you? Who was a letdown? Make sure you subscribed, keep the vibes positive, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace out.